Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Alderman Mike DiGiovancarlo. I am filling in for Mayor O'Leary, who unfortunately had a last-minute conflict and is not able to attend. I want to welcome you to the Hamilton Park Master Plan Overview. This is just an overview. We have from SLR Project Manager Mike Doherty. He'll be presenting first. We ask that you hold any questions till after his presentation is done. If you're uncomfortable asking questions, the City of Waterbury has come up with a website. I will repeat it several times if you want, or throughout the night. It's Hamilton Park at waterburyct.org. You'll have 30 days for any questions, any comments you'd like to add to the project. There will be 16 phone boards that will be placed outside the mayor's office at City Hall. You're more than welcome to go down and view the boards. You can also view some tonight. But again, we're going to go over the overview. You do have questions, I'm sure, for our Finance Director, Mike LeBlanc, is here. If I can answer any questions on behalf of the mayor, I'd be glad to. But I'm going to turn it over to Mike Doherty from SLR Consultants, and he's the project manager.
Thank you, everybody. So also with me today is Suzanne Shore. The two of us are both landscape architects. Some of you may recognize us from the meeting in June of 21. So you also may recognize, I don't know if by then we changed our name from Milone and McBroom to SLR Consulting, but we're the same firm, different name, same people on the team. So today, Suzanne will actually be giving the bulk of the presentation on the master plan vision. I just wanted to touch briefly on some of the background that some of you were a part of in 21, including the survey that was put out online and the community meeting we had with the East End group in June of 21. So just to set the stage of what's been going on for the past year and a half or so, we had the online community engagement, which was really successful. We had over 300 responses. From that, we went through a whole site analysis and came up with a number of design goals to really use as our own support in the design process as we move forward. I guess we're gonna have to deal with a vent noise throughout this, but if you can't hear me, just raise your hand and I could always speak louder. So what you have here is one of the graphics that we showed at that meeting in June, and our design goals were to really create a welcoming park. We want to encourage movement throughout the park. We want to celebrate the natural diversity, the nature of the park. It is rare in the city of Waterbury or any city of this size to have this much acreage and a lot of it being forested or naturalized. And ultimately, we want the park to support the community and its efforts and what it wants to see. So that's one of the reasons, again, we're back here today to hear more from you all. So we appreciate you coming out today. You may recognize some of these images as well. We showed a series of images of existing conditions on site. The park has a slew of facilities. It has a lot of great bones to it. We understand a number of them have been maybe not maintained as much as they could have been over the years. It's a large acreage. It has a lot of monetary investment that is needed for it. So this is really a chance to really start to look at what can be refurbished, renovated, reused, and what needs to be kind of recreated or reimagined. But there are significant history to the park, significant structures, and things that we want to enhance and really highlight. I think you all know that better than anybody. So we will be utilizing a lot of the bones, a lot of the great features of the park in the master plan vision. But we also showed you what the park could hold, what activities it could be utilized in different sections of the park. Everything from athletics and fitness to play structures, playgrounds, the natural environment of the park, and how we can incorporate play and fitness and athletics and everything really into some of these natural areas or the fringes of them. And then again, how does it all fit within the community itself, whether it's artwork, historical artifacts, educational opportunities. So we presented that information in the previous meeting. We got a lot of good feedback. We had a good turnout. Similar to today, this seems to be maybe a slightly larger turnout, which is great. And so out of that meeting, we came up with, if this pointer will work, it will not. Oh, yeah, well. So the highlights from that meeting really came out from the discussion. We're improving accessibility throughout the park, walking pathways, removing barriers to access, improving safety, whether that's lighting, visibility, providing multi-generational activities so people can come there with their kids, their grandkids, and everybody can feel like they have something to do. One of the key things that we found in the survey where people weren't spending a lot of time in the park. It was, a lot of responses said, we're there for 15, 20 minutes and then we leave. So we want people to spend more time in the park. And then finally, providing educational opportunities and highlighting the site history was really the key highlights from the discussions that came out last June. And so today, what we're here to present, and as I said, Suzanne will walk you through the details of this plan, are what we would consider a roadmap or a vision for the park itself. So it's detailed enough to give an idea of what can happen in these spaces, but it's not so detailed that it's set in stone exactly what will be constructed. So each of these areas that we'll discuss can be divided up into multi-phases, multi-projects, and then those would each get detailed, designed, and brought to construction. So beyond this meeting today, beyond the 30 days of comment after this meeting, there's still going to be a good amount, years to come, of interaction that the community can have with a variety of designers. I'm sure it won't be just SLR, that you can help us form this park and really create the future of it. So Suzanne's going to walk you through the map here. We do have boards on the side. We're hopeful that you can come up after the discussion, get a closer look at them. We'll be here as long as you want us to be to answer questions. And I'll turn it over to Suzanne.
Thanks, Mike. Can everybody hear me okay? No. Okay. I'll just lower it. How's this? Better? Okay. All right, so thank you so much for coming out. This project is really exciting, for the community and for Mike and myself and everybody in the city involved because, like Mike said, it's such a rare occurrence to have this many acres preserved that both involve active recreation as well as natural features. And there really are a lot of well-loved and well-used areas in this park that need to be revitalized, as well as introducing some new features that will attract users and enhance the safety and accessibility throughout the park. This map is the overview, but I'm going to jump forward to the enlargements. And if I'm going too fast, let me know. There'll be a chance for me to jump back if there's something that I cover too quickly, and then any questions or details that you'd like to hear more about, we can always go back to the other slides. So this is not in any particular order other than geographically moving around the park. These numbers aren't a number of importance yet, but this area that we're looking at here is where East Main Street and Plank Road intersect, where the park historical entrance is located. Our recommendations for this would just be focused on highlighting the visibility of it, so you actually know that that's an entrance point. One of the things that I noticed a lot when I started working on this project is that I drove by that intersection not knowing where it went, and then when I saw the sign for Hamilton Park at the Silver Street Expressway, I couldn't figure out how to get into the park. I didn't realize the entrance was down Idlewood or that other way. So it looks pretty from the street. You can see that there's some green areas and some trees, but you can't really see what's going on in there. Is it open to the public? What do I do there? So some of the touches on the intersections that we're looking at now would include doing a traffic and signal study currently for safety measures to see what can be done to help improve pedestrian access or bicycles to get into the park, and just create a visible presence and a statement that Hamilton Park is here and it's something important that you want to explore. Number 2 on the map refers to the small pond, which we would like to do ecological improvements to, which would include removing a lot of the overgrowth, vegetation, and trees, opening that area up so you can actually see it as you're coming down East Main Street, and making it feel like a safer, more appealing place that you may want to visit. That would include dredging the pond, replacing the aerator, and adding some seat walls and pathways that are accessible, including some pull-off areas so you can park your car here and enjoy that space. So this is more of an ecological and naturalistic type of improvement recommendation for that section. In this whole area, it's a similar theme. Area 3 just refers to highlighting the natural elements. There are some significantly large old trees that are really beautiful in that area. And you know, there's a little path, you can't really tell where it goes, whether it's safe to go through that area, but we feel like as part of the overall plan for the park, that could be something that could be implemented over time without too much cost to clear out some of the other vegetation, highlight and maybe add some signs, maybe create some kind of a little mini arboretum where some new specimen trees can be planted for future generations to enjoy, you know, include the names and information on those signs, so that could just be a destination for scout groups or garden enthusiasts, things like that. And Area 4 refers to the pedestrian safety, and we're going to talk about the Park Road on the next slide in a little more detail, but one of the things that is an issue now is that cars use this road as a cut through. They travel very fast and the sight lines aren't great. There aren't continuous sidewalks that are curbed that separate people from vehicles. So that's critical to improving the quality of a person's enjoyment in this park, creating that sense of safety, knowing that you're separate from the vehicles and that they're not going to be mowing you down 50 miles an hour coming around a curve. So part of this will include a recommendation to narrow the road and create pedestrian sidewalk and add street lighting as well. So there's a sense of safety and security when you're in this part of the park. I'm going to move to the next slide, which is we did some vignettes because plan views aren't always clear. You can look at a plan but not quite visualize it. So our graphics are very bright and colorful, so they're not literally exactly what happens, but it does give you the feeling of what we're going for. This is the existing view that you have when you're coming down East Main at Hamilton Park Road, and you can see the overgrowth of vegetation that's surrounding the pond. You can't really see it. There are the historical stone walls, which we would preserve, but we think that we could highlight that by maybe adding another bank of either columns or piers or something that kind of makes a statement. And there's also improvements that we would recommend for crosswalks, maybe doing street print. I don't know if anybody has ever seen that, but in a lot of urban areas with traffic, when there's an important intersection, you can do artwork on the road that local artists can do. There's professional paint that is available that will last several years, and it can create like some kind of a statement that this is the entrance to the park. So this is the vision of, why is it blurry? Here we go. So showing a crosswalk that's brightly colored, similar to what was done on East Main Street to put a visual in front of vehicles' eyes. The street print graphic is just something that also would capture drivers' attention because East Main Street doesn't have a traffic signal at this time. Here, putting some cobblestone potentially at the driveway to slow cars as they're coming out, opening up that view to the pond with the new aerator and clearing the vegetation, adding some street lights, and kind of establishing that character to this location. Moving on to the central part of the park, this is where a lot of activity currently occurs and where we think that we can actually enhance and introduce more. Area number 5, I'm going to just move around the perimeter. Area number 5 is where the historical buildings are and where the memorial services are undertaken. We're not recommending any changes to that other than potentially increasing the plaza space, if that's something that's requested, if that's a value to the community, that would be just something to enhance that. But the buildings and the historical features and the brick walks, none of that would otherwise be touched. Area 6, which I'll show you a vignette rendering for as well, is a plaza space that we think would be helpful to establish some kind of a connection for foot traffic coming into the park. Right now, there's really, when you're driving down, like I said, I know a lot of people are in cars, but if you are coming from the neighborhoods on foot, which path do you come in on? Where does it take you? It doesn't really, there is really no front door, front entrance to the park. So we think that we could establish something with little plaza space. There's a bus stop nearby, which is fairly busy. So in the rendering, we'll show you some improvements that we're recommending to create that link to the community, so there's like a front door to the park if you're walking in or riding your bike if you're a kid. Area number 7, again, similar to number 1, is improving the traffic flow around that intersection with the different traffic movements along Idlewood and East Main, crosswalks and street print as well. And as I said, we have a signalization study underway now to determine what the best use and changes would be if any are recommended. Coming around to area number 8, down Idlewood Avenue, this area where Plank Road and Idlewood intersect is currently one of the main ways to access the park. The tennis courts that are in this corner right now are derelict, they're in poor repair, and we think that they could be relocated to another part of the park and create parking here. Because we know that there's a lot of concerns, especially when there's events on the fields. People park up and down the park road on both sides of the street, and that just causes erosion and wear in an unsafe situation if people are trying to cross. So if we can consolidate some parking there, we can provide at least 100 spaces for cars, and that's easily accessible to the pond as well as to the fields. Area number 9 is one of the most significant recommendations that we're making, and that is to stop traffic flow through the park from one end to the other. So when you come in off of Idlewood, you can park, then you can get out and walk on a trail where number 9 and that green stripe is. You can walk to the fields and the pond and the playground to the south. And if you're coming in from the East Main and Silver Street entrance, you can get as far as the Seven Angels Theater, and at that point, that's where you stop, and you turn around and leave. So that would cut down on the speeds, because essentially you would only be driving down this road if your intention is to use the park. And that just creates a whole sense of safety and security in your mind. Like when you're there, you don't have to worry every second if your kid might get out of eyesight for a minute if you're at the playground or wherever you are. And it just creates an opportunity for people to walk, bike, and stroll in this area, and it just gets the cars out of the middle of the park. And that's one of the things that we felt immediately when we saw the site, was that it's too bad this road divides the park right in half. It's almost like 2 separate facilities. So I think that's something that's really important to consider doing. And number 10 is renovating the fields, which they have some drainage issues. So raising them up, just adding some more soil, bringing them up, improving the drainage, looking at the potential of maybe doing a synthetic turf for one of the fields, if not both, maybe keeping one lawn, one synthetic, creating a walking trail that goes around the track as well, around the fields as well, because I think one of the things that people like to do when they come to a park is walk. So having a connecting loop, you can see actually all of the orange are recommendations for different connecting pathways. So you can come and, if you're at an event and you don't want to be sitting on the bleachers, you can just do a walking loop around that trail, and that can be your exercise while somebody else in your family is doing whatever activity they are. Moving on to 11, this is something that there's 2 projects actually going on. The city is undertaking the renovation and replacement of the pools at 3 locations in the city, and one of the key changes here that we're recommending is that this building and pool be completely relocated to a place that's more visible and easily accessible. I'll show you a rendering for that as well, which is a pretty significant change to what's there now. For security purposes too, it's much better if security can drive down the road in the park and look down the new pedestrian walkway that we're proposing, and they can actually see in. They could drive in there as well. It just creates a sense of visibility and openness. And when you're approaching, if you using the parking area that's numbered 13, kind of creates this whole hub where if you're coming in there, you can park, you can walk straight in, you can see the pool immediately behind the pool. For future development, we're recommending using some of those spaces for some play and recreational areas that also are easily accessible from the street. So if you're walking or biking over from the neighborhood and you're not necessarily coming in by car, you still have a little core of activity here for children and teenagers. We're trying to make everything also just accessible and easy to attract a wide variety of ages. So if you're a grandparent coming with your children, or a parent or babysitter, whatever age you are, there'll be things that are incorporated, not separated out. So if you're at the pool with your grandkids, you'll still have an opportunity to do some other activities in that same space. Number 12 is related, as I said, to the pool, and this is what is one of the more significant changes that we're recommending as well. What that will do is eliminate that long circuitous path that goes up the hill and back down to get to the pool building. It'll be something that you can immediately see, easily access. And number 13 will, in addition to that, number 13 will be just utilizing and reorganizing that parking and making sure that it's accessible, including a drop-off area. So if there's a shuttle van that's bringing a group of people to the pool or to the theater, there are pull-off places that could be used for pickup and drop-off. If people have mobility issues and they want somebody to come and pick them up. It could also be used for food trucks. If there's an event that the city wants to host, they could park on that area too. So this whole space can kind of become a core that there's a lot of activity going on in this location of the park. Number 14 is where the current sports facility is located, where they have the indoor soccer and lacrosse. So we've discussed this with the city, and the recommendation is that because this site has such limited flat land, and it's really not, it is a benefit to a lot of people. I know my son has actually gone there in the past, but it would provide a better benefit to the neighborhood and the community using this park if we could consolidate the sports fields or the courts in this area, and there could be a fitness track, multi-purpose courts, different types of pickleball, basketball, Ecuadorian volleyball. I mean, that design would be, something that we would discuss with the community as far as what types of activities you would want there. But that's a good location for courts, and it's easy to see from the road. So for security purposes, if the city has, their police department is cruising through, they can easily see what's going on. And that keeps it also away from the residential area where it's, that might be a little bit more noisy. So it seems like a very good location for that. And there's ample parking as well. And then number 15 is the Seven Angels Theater. And I know that building does need a lot of interior improvements, but externally what we're looking at is improving that back terrace when we create the connection to the proposed pool. That would allow the theater to have space that could be used for events, if there's overflow for, maybe a cocktail party or something beforehand. They could have a beer garden festival or something there. We would improve accessibility with handicap ramps and stairs and improve the safety of getting in and out of that building and creating a plaza space around it that can be utilized. So that can be utilized for a wide variety of events. It's flexible space. And at the very end is some parking that can be also used for access to the theater and to the fields, and that would probably focus more on handicap parking because that's much closer to the activity areas. But some of the vignettes that we're talking about is for number 6, we're looking at the existing view of East Main Street. One of the recommendations that we'll be addressing pretty quickly, or the city will, is removing the dead trees and limbs that are there that are just unsightly and dangerous. We're looking at a proposed front porch type of plaza space, you know, where the bus shelter, where the bus stop is, doing some street print, kind of narrowing the road a little bit. People kind of slow down when that happens because it gets them pushed into a narrower area. Adding a bus shelter, the traditional city street lighting with the banners. Those banners could have, you know, the city's logo on one side, and if there's something special that the east side has for a logo, or, you know, that could be added as well. But cleaning that up and just creating like a welcome spot that you can actually enter with new pathways that will bring you down to the pool and into the other areas of the park. So you don't have to necessarily come in by car on that main road. You can easily come in off of East Main Street on foot or by bike. This is the vision for the Hamilton Park Road, where it would be closed. Currently, you've got cars whipping up and down, and it's not that welcoming for pedestrians. You kind of have to walk in the ditch on the side if you are going to go anywhere, or cars are just parked on the side of the road, so it's not that pleasant. So our recommendation is to just turn it into a pathway that's, like I said before, just for pedestrians and cyclists, and it just creates that sense of just, you can relax when you're in that space because you know that nobody's going to come through. So it would have removable bollards in case of emergencies. If an emergency vehicle needed to come through, that would be accommodated. But this would include, all of these discussions include lighting, bringing that in, so the areas that are most heavily used would have some security with that, emergency blue phones, potentially a security guard booth somewhere in the park. You know, those little details aren't necessarily covered in the master plan discussion, but that would all be wrapped into that. This is the area where the Seven Angels Theater obviously is. The pool is behind that, so you have to go up the asphalt path behind this vegetation and up behind the wall around the corner. So it's not easy to get to. And I've spoken to people who are using the pool who said they had family members that couldn't make the walk, and they could not use that pool because they physically just couldn't get to it. So in order to resolve that, the grade of the street is actually similar to the grade behind the pool. There's that little hill that's going by, but nothing that a little 3-foot wall or a 2.5-foot wall on either side could accommodate. So removing this hillside, putting in some low retaining walls, and just creating a flat level path that's immediately adjacent to the parking area would make it much easier and make you feel like it's an entrance to some place. You know, you don't have to search where you're going. You don't have to wonder, like, how do I get to the pool from the road? So it's also accessible to the theater and to the sports fields. And then the basketball courts would be behind us. But this would also provide some additional space for the Seven Angels Theater to have for events that overflow outdoors. We would improve their accessibility in and out of the theater. Moving down to the southern portion of the park where the duck pond and ball fields are, we're looking at improving the parking, which exists at number 16. Right now there's just kind of a little horseshoe pull-off space. It's kind of just dirt, and it's not well organized, and we know we can fit, I think, at least 25 cars in there, but the way it is right now, maybe 8 or 9 can get in there because they just park all over. So formalizing that and creating that as another entry point that tells you that you're entering the park. I'll show you a vignette that kind of shows what happens as you move from 16 into 17 and 18. 17 is obviously the duck pond, which is one of the most favorite places that everybody loves to go. That does require some long-term permitting to establish, to get the permits in order to make the improvements, but we're strongly recommending dredging it and making the ecological improvements that will just allow people to enjoy that much more, and creating a trail around it, adding some seating, doing things that it's just a nice, bucolic, calm place to come and sit and visit, which is rare, again, in the middle of the city. It'll also be an educational opportunity for scout groups or school groups. There can be over time, maybe some small signage added. You can learn about the flora and fauna, the different vegetation that's in the water, or the amphibious creatures. So there's a lot that you could do to enhance this area, and not just add to it, but just improve it ecologically. And that would just benefit the habitat here. Area number 18 currently holds the small playground and splash pad. And what we're recommending over time would be to look into developing a destination playground, something that's, well, I'll show you a vignette also for that, but that's something that would be a draw for people, not just in the immediate neighborhood to have your typical steel and plastic play structure, but something that could be used by all different ages and abilities, that's kind of built into the terrain. It's nice and hilly. There are a lot of companies now that are developing much more creative, open-ended play equipment. So it's not just a static thing that you get bored with right away, and that's something that could be added to over time. Area 19 is the stone house, the stone house. We're recommending bringing electricity and power to that, improving the ability for people to use it all year round, making it accessible, which it currently is not. So adding some paved space around it, rerouting the circulation to be able to get people in and out, having some pull-off space, so if you're having a birthday party or some little event that you're hosting there, you can pull over and unload. Behind that is the stream, which is labeled number 20, and that's really tying into number 17, just making ecological improvements and clearing. There's a trail system at number 21 that you really can't see, and I was surprised at how many people were walking in there. When I went and I checked it out, and I was like, couple of joggers passed me, and I felt like not knowing what I was going to encounter coming around a corner made me feel like I know that if they cleared a little bit of the vegetation out of there, I mean, just to create that visibility between the fields and the stone house, and that you can actually thread the play space through that as well, have a little bridge or stepping stones or something that goes across the water, and allowing anybody, not just children, but allowing you to actually get your hands into it and close to nature and seeing what's there, because I don't think you necessarily even know that there's a resource there, or if you do, it might be, you know, overgrown or full of trash or something, but if certain areas can be cleared out, that would just allow people to access it and appreciate it. Area 22 is just a continuation of, there's a green line that's weaving through the entire park, and that would just be a constructed walkway that people can walk on outside of the road. So it would be a curbed, separated path that could be used for bicycles or for pedestrians to get through the different areas of the park. And Area 23 is the ball fields. I think the lower two right now I think are primarily being used for cricket, probably baseball as well, but in Area 22 where the softball fields are, that is a potential location for an ice rink, whether it's a temporary seasonal thing or something more permanent, with the stone house right there. And once we bring power to it, there's the potential for having services in the wintertime there that maybe, if something valuable to the community. And again, all of these things are areas that we see potential for, and once we get into funding sources and putting a hierarchy on what is done at what time, we will be coming back to the community to kind of feel out what's valuable to you. Is this is this something that you want? So this is just a potential location that makes sense for something like that, which I know the park has had in the past. 24 and 25 are essentially just reorganizing the parking area and just making it a little more efficient. And 25 is where the bird sanctuary is, and that's a beautiful naturalistic area filled with ferns and a lot of vegetation that it's not invasive. It's things that you would find out in the middle of the woods in New Hampshire, and it's just a great opportunity if those trails are marked, and if you go to the trailhead and you actually see a sign with the map and you know where you can get in and where you can get out and what destination there might be, that will just increase the usage of people that appreciate that want to take a walk through that area. And again, with the educational opportunity. There's an enormous amount of, little trails or little, destinations that can be found by different people that are interested in doing that. So the entrance at Idlewood is where the current, that to the left there is the parking area, and when you go straight where those two vehicles are, that's the route that you take to the pond. So if we formalize the parking and kind of put up a little, timber guide rail separating it from a pedestrian zone, having those columns there just kind of defines the spaces. Now this is pedestrian space. This is areas that are safe to move around. And the destination playground could be, there's so many ideas for what that can be. I mean, a lot of times it's building things into hillsides, making scrambles and doing things with stone and with wood that are more flexible and open-ended for kids to enjoy. It's not kid-friendly exclusively. I mean, there are things that grown-ups and everybody can enjoy in these types of playgrounds as well. Here's the duck pond, and again, as we mentioned, it's a very popular location in the park. So just dredging the pond, cleaning up the banks, doing this bank stabilization, removing some of the invasive material and replanting with native vegetation, and creating a pathway that's something that's stable and level that people can walk around and enjoy, adding some benches so people can sit, maybe some rocks or a little deck that juts out over the pond so you can fish, you can feed the ducks. And for the stone pavilion, it's a little bit hard to see, but there is a lot of grade that goes down to get to it. It's technically not accessible, and the pathway isn't consistent. There's some asphalt, some grass or compacted soil. So the recommendations for that would be to maybe expand a little paved plaza space around it, so if you are having a party or an event, there's a little more room, bringing in the electricity, linking that, connecting that to the splash pad, maybe enhancing that splash pad a little bit, or incorporating elements from the playground in that space. So behind that, there's that level softball field, which potentially could be a future skating rink. So that's an overview of the ideas that we've had. So for restoring, bringing in new ideas, and preserving the history and the heritage that's here. Mike, do you want to go to the slide for phase one? Oh, it did a power up?
Just put it back to that. All right, well, so as you can see, there's a lot to the plan. I'm sure it was somewhat difficult for you to see each of the little keyed in parts. If you have a chance, there's text associated with each of the numbered items that Suzanne was walking through. So we definitely would like you to go up afterwards and have a chance to read through those, and then you can ask us even more questions. What I'd like to just touch on real quick is the city's efforts in the coming months, really, and into 2023 in terms of what is the phase one goal that we're trying to achieve for the implementation of improvements to the park. So as you can see, there's a lot. It's a large park, but the city figuratively and literally would like to make a big splash in terms of this first year of investment. So one of the largest pieces to the puzzle of the master plan and the implementation is the pool area. So the pool itself will be removed. The current bathhouse will be removed. There will be a new bathhouse and a new pool built. in close proximity but shifted slightly south, as Suzanne mentioned. Associated with that, the pedestrian promenade that connects that facility to Hamilton Park Road will be constructed. And then we have to figure out what other connective tissue around that in terms of Seven Angels Theater, down to the athletic fields, and up and around towards East Main Street. How much of that is encompassed in that project? But that is a very large and robust project. There's a fair amount of earthwork, retaining walls. Obviously, the pool and the bathhouse are large investments. The promenade itself, we think, is going to make a major visual change in that area, but more importantly, an accessible change. So, as Suzanne mentioned, we heard from a number of people that could not get to that pool or the bathhouse and could not use it. Family members that had to basically be left home because they couldn't make it there. So the road improvements, the promenade, and the pool bathhouse all together, we think will make a very drastic change for the better, which will really affect the whole utilization of that section of the park. Combined with that area of improvements, the athletic center, the current athletic center in the upper corner, southwest corner or northwest corner there, we are working on that area to remove the leasee and actually demolish that building, the two structures that are there. More than likely, that area would then be used as a construction laydown area. It's off to the side, it's out of the way for the first year or so. It's a great spot to keep construction equipment, material, and keep it kind of safe and out of the way so people aren't really interacting with that space. Down the road, certainly working on the courts themselves, figuring out exactly what sport courts the community would like to see out there would be a fairly a near-term improvement. Beyond that, the Stone House, working down to the southern end of the property, the Stone House improvements that Suzanne was just going over in terms of accessibility, electricity, that would also be moving forward in the coming months and into 23. And the tree clearing. So I'm sure you have noticed, especially along East Main Street, there are a number of trees that have been diseased, dying, or dead. Just removing those, getting the unsightly trees and the unsafe trees out of the park, again, we believe is a sort of a low-hanging fruit that we can get done quickly in terms of in the next few months, and it will make a beneficial impact to the park safety and the visibility of the park. Am I missing any? Yes, the road closure. So another major safety improvement that we've been working back and forth with city staff on is the closure of Hamilton Park Road. So whether that entails just blocking off the two ends for the first phase here in 22-23, or if it entails more improvements along that road, including lighting, the pedestrian pathway, we're still going to work that out. That improvement does impact other things outside of the park. So intersections on Idlewood and Silver Street are going to be impacted by the traffic that can no longer pass through Hamilton Park Road. That is an ongoing study that our traffic engineers are conducting currently, and the outcome most likely will be signalization at one or both of those intersections. So that has to be worked out. But the closure of that section is about 900 linear feet. Again, cuts off that cut through, cuts the speeds down, really creates a connected park right in the core that we think is really beneficial to the overall aspects of the master plan and the vision of the park moving forward. So to that end, turn it back over.
Okay, folks, for any questions or concerns, we're going to ask you to line up at that microphone right there. Again, if you do not want to speak, you're more than welcome to go to Hamilton Park at waterburyct.org. Leave your questions, leave your comments. You'll have 30 days. There'll be 16 boards outside the mayor's office if you want to look at them. Before we start, there is coffee in the back if anybody's looking for coffee. But if you have any questions, please come up. We also have our finance director, Mike LeBlanc, here to answer any other questions financially. So if anybody wants to come up.
Yeah, my name is Roberta Crispino. Grew up in Waterbury. I spent hours as a kid in Hamilton Park. I just have, I guess, 3 questions. Historical. At Silver Street, currently there's a big stone with a plaque on it that describes who Hamilton was and all of that. Is that going to remain?
Yeah, so the details of that area, again, kind of fuzzy right now. But yeah, the intent was for that stone wall to remain and to be added onto to give it a little more robust
Yeah,
character.
I'm not interested in the stone wall. I'm interested in the stone that has
Right,
the
the
plaque.
stone in front of, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would stay, yeah, we wouldn't want
Yeah,
to
I mean, the
move that.
park wasn't born a park. Somebody put it there and had the vision
Yeah.
to develop in Hamilton. Very interesting fella. It was actually after he died that his wife donated all the
Right.
land to the park. Now, number 2, at Idlewood, a woman donated all that land specifically for a bird sanctuary.
Yep.
Is that in the plan?
Yes, so that area is remaining forested. The only improvements we're really talking about there are creating more formal pathways, so just kind of formalizing the trails that are there, maybe taking some offline that don't necessarily make sense, and providing access across the wetland that is kind of in the middle of the
Will it
bird
be
sanctuary.
identified as a bird sanctuary?
Yes.
Okay. And number 3, as you face Seven Angels Theater, on the right-hand side, there's a couple of fountains down there that talk about a police officer that have been there for years.
Yep.
Is that fountain going to be refurbished and brought up to date?
So we don't get to that fine a grain of a detail, but I would imagine, yes, we would incorporate that fountain probably in that same area that's slated to remain a plaza space.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Richard Appy, and I practically lived in Hamilton Park for most of my childhood. I just have a couple of questions, and this may be more for Ditch than anybody else. What is going to be done, hopefully, regarding security for the park?
I don't want to answer for the chief, but, obviously, just closing that road down and stopping traffic, that obviously it's a speed zone. Right now, people just cut through, they're flying back and forth. I would assume eventually, if there's a longer road, there would be speed bumps involved, and I would assume that's going to be a nice open area for our bikes, for our patrol, for the horses. I'm sure they'll be in that park daily.
I'm thinking more about cameras.
Cameras, I'm sure, will be, I'm a big fan of cameras, so I'm sure cameras will be definitely in the park. Yeah, they'll probably, I would assume those cameras would be absolutely connected to the real-time crime center also in the City Waterbury Police Department. So I'm sure that a substantial investment like this and security with the kids alone is two huge reasons to, have cameras all over that park. So.
And lastly, we've got a bunch of knuckleheads on ATVs and motocross bikes. Even with those paths, is there any way we can try to secure that so they can't get in? I mean, they tear places up in one night.
Yeah, it's such a big park, and there's so many entranceways into that park that we've tried to do stings there and trap them in, and they went up and over the mountains. I mean, it's almost, you got to just hope that they don't wreck a major investment.
I think
That's
it's a
all.
wonderful plan, and I hope it comes to fruition.
Thanks. Just to touch on the security question on the cameras, the recent park work that we've been involved in, and I believe pretty much all the park work that's been being done by the city, cameras have been integrated into the park, on the pedestrian light poles. We provide for the conduit, and then the city's vendor for security cameras comes in and mounts the cameras there.
Yes, my name is Mike Steer. I grew up in the East End and spent many, many days at Hamilton Park, which was a nice, safe, clean area. I hope it remains that way. However, I have 2 parts to my question. The first part is, these are great plans for generally a heavily utilized park. Will you be employing special, not special, but equipment and materials that will be not vandal-free, but safe, used, and easily maintained? And is it possible that in the future a special account could be established just for maintenance on this park? No other park or area in the city, but if there's something occurs, money could be drawn from the account just for this park.
Yeah, so Michael answer the first part, and then we'll get Mike LeBlanc up to answer the second part, okay?
So in terms of the design materials, you're correct. We'll try to use things that are durable, maintenance-free. What we try to do is use things that are kind of across the board for the city parks in terms of light fixtures, just to create a standard so parks crew, public works aren't trying to fix 20 different types of fixtures or benches or whatever it may be. So yeah, it's a key consideration during the detailed design process that we look to do something that has character, but doesn't look like it belongs in a prison. So we're trying to provide something that is fun, colorful, it's comfortable, it creates a welcoming environment, but also can take that daily abuse of what we hope to be visitors, residents, basically nonstop in the park. The other side of that is we hope with the refurbishment of the park and the more eyes that are there, it helps to achieve less vandalism, less nefarious things going on. But we can only do so much, and then it kind of takes over at night, policing and visibility and lighting. But yeah, we will definitely be considering vandal-proof and durable, maintenance-free options.
Good evening. Just a couple comments. In relation to a specific allocation of budgeted funds by park, that's not currently how we budget. It's a general parks maintenance account that is budgeted for each year. But I would say two things in addition to that. First, with the investment that is in play going into 2022, the end of this year into 2023, as well as the additional phases of investments that would come, the city is looking at making a major investment into this park, and certainly that's not going to be made without some planning and foresight going into making sure that we protect that asset and that investment as we go out into the years ahead. And although it's not a commonly used component, but through the philanthropic side, we do have other parks in the city where there have been donations that have been made, bequests that have funded various perpetual trusts that are in place, and certainly that's something that in line with the investments that are being made. Perhaps that's something that over time is put out there to see if residents and other key stakeholders in the community and in the city would look to make, whether it's direct donations or bequests to a trust that would help in the long-term maintenance of the park going into the years ahead. But again, certainly we in the budgeting process each year would be fully cognizant of needing to make sure that the appropriate funds are allocated to protect the investments that are going to be made into this park.
Hi, I'm Samina De Laurentiis. I'm from Seven Angels Theater. I think this is a very exciting, wonderful project for the city, and a park is to be utilized by people, and so we're just really excited about seeing how beautiful this is going to be. My one question from Seven Angels is most of our attendees and people that come to do the programs at the theater, they all come to the theater from getting off the highway, whether they're coming from the west end of Waterbury, all those sides of the highway. And then they get off and they come to the four-way stop and they take a left and they come into the park. A big concern of all of us, I think, here is how people use it as a pass-through to just speed through, and that safety concern that you've taken into consideration is really appreciated by all of us. From the theater, because they always get off the highway, they come into the park from the Idlewood end of the park. My concern would be is that they're going to get off, they're going to come to Idlewood, and then in that concentrated amount of time from when they go to the theater and then they leave the theater at night, that they're going to cut back through over Idlewood and along that strip. So they'll come out of the park, they'll come up to that intersection, and they will take Yeah.
They will take yeah, so they'll get off the highway and they'll come down, and instead of going this way, they'll go through. They're going to have to go all the way down and then come into the park. Right. Whereas normally now they come here. They come here and they just go. Right. So now they're going to go here. They're going to cut along all this row of houses, a tremendous amount of traffic, and then cut down this way and then come back in. That would be my only concern in that concentrated amount of time from 7 o'clock, but then at 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, they're coming back and they're doing that same, just to bypass the feeling all that. That would be my only thing. Cutting off the road, I think is great. So that's the concern of this, and it's going to be that concentrated traffic.
Sure.
And what is that impact would be on that neighborhood?
Yeah, that's a great point. And so it's one of the things that concerns the city and our staff as well. So that was the traffic study I mentioned that our transportation engineers are doing to look at what are the impacts outside of the park from closing that road. So we know it's going to push traffic kind of either side of the closure. How much, we don't know the numbers exactly. We do think involved with that closure, there's going to have to be wayfinding signage starting down at the highway exit ramps and getting people directed so that they don't necessarily cut through the neighborhood. So at least out-of-towners that don't know the streets that well, we think we can get them to use the main road and cut across instead of coming up through Plank Road and then cutting Idlewood. So there will be some additional traffic on those residential roads at first. We're hoping by signage and wayfinding, we can get people to go up to Harper's Ferry and cut across. The other thing is the signalization at those intersections. If it makes it more convenient not to take those residential roads and the light timing is easily to pass through on the main road, on East Main, you're less likely to take those cut-throughs because you're going to be sitting at a light. Yep.
That's our,
Yeah,
we
no.
know that our traffic is concentrated at very
Right.
specific times.
Yeah.
And late at night, especially when it's out.
Yep.
So, but I think it's beautiful, so
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you. Good evening. Geraldo Reyes, State Representative, 75th District. And first of all, I want to thank you guys for the preliminary work that's been done here. And I have a few comments and a suggestion. So wearing my public safety hat, and this is a conversation Representative DJ McCarlo and I have had, I think it's time that the city of Waterbury really start thinking about putting some speed bumps down into the inside these parks. We'll start at the parks. It should be in some other large municipalities. New Haven, Bridgeport, Hartford all have speed bumps on throughways in inner cities, and Waterbury needs to get to that point. I think we need to put speed bumps in this park and every other park. Representative DJ McCarlo and I have had this conversation many times, number one. Number two, I think that I like what I see here with the soccer field and the football field side by side, but looking at the demographics of who's really using the field, I would make those two soccer fields that could be football fields. Right now, you have on Sunday a large population of Central America, South American teams, Jamaican teams, Guyanese teams that play, and they all have to wait for one field. So I would make those two fields simultaneously so they can run two games at once. And somebody mentioned on the bird trail, there should be a trail so that you can actually enjoy that sanctuary, that bird sanctuary back there. And then the last thing, I'm not sure what exactly that blue thing is there where the other softball field is. What is that?
That's a potential location for a winter ice rink.
Okay.
We have a level area here, and there's another level area behind the proposed pool.
So we would get rid of that first softball field?
The city says that they have enough other softball
Yeah,
fields to utilize if this was taken offline, but this is something that we would weigh with the community to see how valuable this actually is and whether maybe doing something smaller up by the pool and doubling up over there versus the stone house. But that's
Thank you very much. And my last point, the backfield, Brass Mills, has been multi-purpose use. There have been some Guyanese that play cricket. Has any consideration been given for that to be used for cricket?
For these fields?
Yes.
Yes, I think I mentioned that the city told me that there are cricket games that are used here. I don't know if the dimensions are exactly the same or if they can be used for both, but yes, and that's a very good point that we also talked about the Ecuadorian volleyball, cricket, different games that might be, doubled for these different uses, but yeah, cricket.
Thank you. No, that's the changing demographics of the people who are using this particular park for those fields, the volleyball, the soccer, and so forth. So.
Doing these, once we get into more detailed design, whoever's actually going to do the detailed design for these projects will definitely reach out to the community so we can get that type of feedback, because we don't want to make assumptions that everybody's playing certain sport or something new or there's something different, and demographics of the community play a huge role.
No, I appreciate that feedback, because I don't see anybody here from the Guyanese community or the Colombian community that uses a soccer field. So these are many of my constituents. That's why I brought it up. But I think you guys have done a wonderful job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So just to follow up on that, in case some people couldn't hear, the football and soccer field shown striped that way, the idea would be that they could be striped a number of different ways. They could go north, south, east, west, for whatever, multi-purpose uses they need. We understand there's a lot of different groups that come in and use those for different sports. So the idea is that those could be striped in a number of different ways. Even if they are put down as synthetic turf, we've done fields with multiple different stripes, different colors, so you could play different games over it, or you can actually just chalk the lines onto the synthetic turf itself. For the baseball fields down in the lower corner, the idea there is to refurbish those fields and not change the fact that there is an overlay field over the two outfields. So we wouldn't be fencing those two fields and cutting off that overlay field, so you'd still have that use there.
The plan is absolutely beautiful. I'm thrilled to see that something's finally being done. My biggest concern and my biggest question is when you look at the main entrance to the park, where it is, and it's going to be the main entrance, you need to look beyond that. You need to look across the street. You need to look 3 or 4 blocks down there, down from the main entrance. What's going on there right now, it's not welcoming. It's not inviting. I personally would not want to go in that entrance because of the things that are going on right over there. How many shootings have been right across the street? How much drug stuff is going on right at that intersection? It needs to be cleaned up beyond the park. So I'm hoping that the city really takes that into consideration and they look beyond the park, starting from Sacred Heart, the old Sacred Heart Church up. That's a gateway. And when you look at that area, it's sad and something needs to be done. If you're going to do this much work, you need to look at the area around it, not just the park itself.
Yeah, so part of the plan, obviously, is going to be to light up that area, even nighttime, like daylight, hopefully. And we are aware of activity going on there. And Chief Spagnuolo obviously has sent, several cars that direction just for that area daily. So he is trying to, we are trying to cut down on some of the activity there. We do realize that it's a tough section, but again, lighting it up and making it more welcoming, it may actually push, some of the bad stuff down the road, hopefully. So, okay.
Eminent domain and just completely wipe it out and start over. Eminent domain, completely wipe it out and start over.
My name is Jack Alsop. I want to commend the aggressiveness of Phase 1. I think it's a great, you're going to get a great deal done quickly. My big question is, how many more phases and how long does it take to finish?
So I would say that remains to be seen. The city has dedicated a lot of effort to this Phase 1, and as that progresses over the next few months and into 23, I would hope we would be involved, but you never know. But I assume we would work through the different phases that could be implemented. As I said early on, there's so many pieces to this master plan that could be chopped up into a variety of ways to build it. We're going to have to look at what's the best scenario in terms of construction sequencing, so we're not undoing work, that we do in a previous year. But that's an ongoing discussion that we've been working with WDC city staff to figure out that prioritization, and we would look towards the community to give us feedback on comments on what they would like to see in the near future versus more long-term.
Can we be confident that the next phases will be as aggressive in getting as much done? I know it's a finance thing, and finances are the way they are.
Yeah, and, you know, the short answer is yes. You know, there will be multiple phases, but the 2023 year and then the year to follow, 2024, I think we certainly see those as two big years. They fall nicely within the period where we want to be, you know, purposing the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act funds that have been allocated to the city of Waterbury. Additionally, you know, as we're proceeding with phase one, we're going to be aggressive with seeking other opportunities, grant opportunities that we can, you know, specifically utilize for different segments of the park. You know, but the thought process is, you know, certainly to aggressively move on phase one, as Mike and Susanna described, in those areas, and while that's happening, to really take the input from the community and start at the same time a parallel path to think about what the priorities ultimately are going to be in phase two. And with that, again, looking to you know, earmark the additional ARPA funds that would be allocated for ultimately phase two, as well as using that time to aggressively seek other funding opportunities that may be available, specifically in the area of parks. There is a lot of money nationally at the federal level for parks, and you know, this is certainly, with the size and scale of this park, you know, it provides a nice opportunity. You know, we can envision certainly some nice grant applications coming about based now on the you know, quality and thorough information that we have as far as, you know, the multitude of investments that could be made into this park to provide, you know, long-term dividends for years and years to come.
Okay, I have one more comment that my experience, I was a maintenance supervisor for state parks, and I inherited a beautiful, wonderful $3.5 million project that they did at Sherwood Island. It was gorgeous, a nightmare to take care of. They created about 60 extra hours a week just to maintain what they thought was pretty. And obviously after 5 years, it wasn't pretty, and we had to undo it. So I just caution that we don't make picture-perfect, unsustainable things down there, because it does happen. And, you know, I'm a victim of it. I can tell you, it's a nightmare. It's got to be maintainable. That's the most important thing. And we're not typically, any department in Waterbury or state, given enough help and enough equipment to take care of something. So what we need to do is plan it from the beginning so it can be maintained with what we do have. Thank you.
Hi, Lana Ogrodnik. This is very promising and very exciting, so we can't wait for things to start taking place. I wanted to address, I believe it's Area 21, which is behind that duck pond. Yeah. Yeah. Well, just, yeah, basically that area there. I know we've looked at that for years as a kind of a problem as far as safety goes. Has any thought been given to, you know, like there's a path there that goes to the stone house now, but widening that area, maybe knocking down some of those hills there so you can get a clear vision of the ball fields and that, because, you know, that's where a lot of problems have occurred in the park too.
The areas between 20 and 21, where you can see there's a lot of dense vegetation behind the stone house, between the stone house where that stream is and those trails. That's definitely one area that we want to address with some clearing and opening, so you can actually, because you can actually move between those two spaces if it wasn't overgrown. And so doing that doesn't trap you on a trail that has one way in, one way out. And you know what I mean? So that would open it up a bit more. Once you get towards the more like the left corner area, the grade changes, you've got the highway there, so that is fenced off, that is kind of a limited area, so what goes on way back there is a little bit less controllable, but creating more defined, stable, wider trails that have visibility from the ball fields and the Stonehouse area into that, that will automatically kind of create a little bit more sense of safety, so more people may venture in there, and once more people do use that, and they can get in and out in more than one way, that could also deter other people from kind of like hunkering down in there because they know they're going to have people coming by more often. So it's a little bit of a play on both, but that definitely that would be part of the intention, clearing that up.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I have three things. First of all, this is really exciting. Going through the process and seeing what you have in store for us, I'm really I'm hopeful, and I think it's going to look terrific. I have just three things. The first one is I didn't hear any mention of the basketball court. What's on your mind about the basketball court?
The current basketball court. So the current basketball court down in sort of what we call the gorge. Is highly kind of not visible. It's kind of segregated in that small area there. So the idea for the basketball court would be it would move over to the northwest corner where what it will be the former athletic center building.
Okay.
So that will become, when we say multi-sport courts, we're kind of just leaving it open at this point. What we would envision, a bank of basketball courts, the Ecuadorian volleyball courts, maybe a handball court or some other hard surface court, pickleball. Again, we would look to the community to tell us what they would like to see in that area, but that's where we would see that congregation of what we would call paved courts, sport courts. In the area that the basketball court is currently, we envision that whole area as becoming more of an activity zone and activating kind of that East Main side of the park. So with the pool improvements, what we'd like to see is other youth and teenage activity areas so that you can go to the pool, but you can also leave outside, not have to leave the park. You can stay. There could be a sport court in that area that's just kind of a multi-function, maybe just has some fun low basketball hoops. They have the geometric hoops that have, it's more like geometry to get the ball in. Maybe just some kind of fun activities like that. We're thinking of that area could get terraced, and there could be a small amphitheater and event space in that hillside, so that you can have a small concert, say, or set up a tent structure and have a picnic, or someone could rent out the area. The area right behind the pool, we think, could be utilized in terms of that kind of hillside scramble, having a hillside actual slide down there. Whether there's a splash pad incorporated into that area or something that could be flooded in the winter for an ice rink, we think could extend the season in that area and potentially have a dual purpose of the bathhouse with a restroom or a skate shack or some kind of concession stand.
Sure. Thank you. And then secondly, are we talking about the Stonehouse becoming a 3-season building?
It's hard to say. We want to have more use of the Stonehouse. So getting electricity, we think, extends the opportunities in terms of you could have some lighting, which obviously helps at night, but it also provides for the potential for a generator to be run, maybe some heaters. The tough thing about the Stonehouse is how do we create an area where you can have heat, during the winter that isn't going to get vandalized when no one's there. So the goal is to create a more seasonality of that Stonehouse. So again, we would look for suggestions. Putting in windows, putting in screens. These are things that we see potential issues with maintenance, long-term vandalism, things of that nature. So the first step we see is getting the electricity there, getting the accessibility there, because right now some people can't make it down to the Stonehouse, providing that paved surface around it to extend at least the use of the area around it. But again, if you have ideas in terms of 3-season, 4-season, we'd love to hear it.
I'd love to talk to you about it.
Yep.
And also the third thing, we went to go see the grandkids up in the Cape 2 weekends ago, and my 10-year-old grandson Ollie said, we always go to the parks all the time. We got to go to the parks. And so we're riding to his favorite park, and he said, "Hey, Pop, do you have a special park for kids who are blind?" Because one of his friends is blind.
Yep.
He said, "Can you guys have a Braille trail?" I said, that's a heck of an idea there, Ollie.
Yeah.
And you talking about those areas where you're simply going through just walking through. The idea of incorporating a Braille trail for those, to walk through the field those, feel the leaves,
yep.
Touch this, I think it might be something.
Direction that we're trying, with all new park and playground design, we're trying to keep everybody's capabilities in mind, different ways of experiencing and enjoying spaces. So it's hard to give everything to everybody and make, and keep it safe without fencing areas off necessarily, but those are definitely things that are in our mind when we're designing in terms of what age groups, what different abilities can be used, how will they be able to get around. And I believe you may have been the one last summer to mention the Braille Trail. I know somebody definitely did mention
I did.
the Braille
Yeah.
Trail,
Yeah.
and that's definitely been something in our mind. But again, at this level of design, this is kind of a roadmap plan, but that's something that would be considered as, a valuable addition.
I don't know of anyone. I can't think of a park that has one in the area. It would be wonderful to have.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Christine Simone from Seven Angels Theater, and I'd like to address the entrance to the park coming in off of East Main Street. What made you decide to make that the main entrance? Because as it exists today, it's pretty ugly. Not just the buildings and the area, but just trying to make that left-hand turn off of East Main. Yeah.
So historically, that is the main entrance to the park. So we wanted to kind of complement that, keep it as part of the history of the park. We are looking at, potentially, reorienting where we come up to that corner of Silver and East Main. So maybe, yep. So in terms of the traffic study that's being done, that's going to be kind of part of it. How can we make that a more safe transition in and out of the park? The tough thing about the park is up on that side on East Main Street with the Silver Street Expressway kind of cutting across over the park, it limits where you can really create a vehicular entrance into the park. We did look at, could we come off East Main at the corner of Silver and East Main there at the main intersection? But due to the topography, due to some of the uses, the Victory House that's there, it didn't really work out well. Again, the grade there is much higher to get down to, say, the Seven Angels Theater. So you'd be building a road essentially through the heart of the park. So right now, the vision would be closing the road so it's not cutting across the entire park, improving the intersection and the visibility and the look and feel of East Main Street. I think with some of the clearing that can be done, the regrading, some expanded stonework and gateway, that area would actually become really fun and robust and welcoming. So I think it takes a little bit of vision looking ahead, but if you actually could see that pond, if you could see the aerator shooting up 30 feet in the air like it used to, if you had pathways and terracing letting you down to that space, even just driving by, I think it would make a huge difference.
So then your vision is it won't be that hard left off of East Main because you've got one road coming out and then you've got
right. So that the whole
road.
So we're looking at that whole kind of area there. That's kind of a funky situation. You have one way out and around, and then it's only, I think, exit only at the corner. So we could kind of take all that in consideration to see what makes the most sense. And then adding a traffic light potentially is also another option that would then clean it up because you'd have to stop and make left or right turns at the time.
Okay, thank you.
But it's a good point.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thomas Peltier, Park Commissioner with the City of Waterbury. I just wanted to commend you guys on this plan and listening to you guys. A lot of what was said here tonight is what the community has been calling for quite some time. It is one of our largest parks in the city of Waterbury. It's going to be a showcase for the city. I don't want to get Mike Salvio upset. I know Fulton Park is my favorite park where I grew up, but you know, just coming into Waterbury, Hamilton Park, you know, it's the first thing everybody sees. This administration has been committed to parks since it took office, working with our state, federal, and local delegations. They're going to do everything they can to make sure that this project gets done. It's one of the main reasons why when I was asked to be a park commissioner, I signed up, because I know that this administration is a man of its word, and it's going to get done. It takes time. This is one of the largest parks in the city. We got to make sure it gets done right the first time. It's what the community's been asking for quite some time. No administration in the past has taken on this endeavor, but this administration, I'm sure, is going to get it done. You know, and I think it's going to bring out the community. I think, you know, you see your stakeholders here tonight. You see the community, Seven Angels Theater. It's going to be a great thing in the area, and I just can't wait to see it get done. So we need to continue to support this. We need to do whatever we can, getting more of our stakeholders involved to not only help the city, the state, and everybody involved, but you know, this just shows by everybody being here what bipartisanship is and working together, and it's going to be a magnificent park. So I commend all you guys and everybody involved. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there's nobody else, again, I encourage you to go to Hamilton Park at waterburyct.org. You have 30 days. I encourage you to go down to City Hall. Outside the mayor's office will be the, I believe, 16 foam boards, I was told. So that's what I was told. If not, just those boards. Go down, see them. Now's your chance to, you know, to make recommendations. If you're severely concerned about the entrance at East Main Street, please make those recommendations. Have some, if you have questions, make sure they're answered, again, before something starts and you lost your opportunity to speak about it. So we thank everybody for coming out. We thank SLR Consultants, Mike LeBlanc, Booley Manor, Seven Angels, East End Community Club. We thank everybody for coming out. And at that, we'll end the program. Thank you.